Hey, this is Alan Dana from Aussie Freedom Flyers. This is hopefully going to be our regular event on interviewing people around aviation and catching up with court cases that are going post-pandemic. This is Friday, the 28th of July, 2023, and I'm joined tonight by Mylar. Advaita, g'day, mate. How are you going?
Hi, Glenn. Yeah, good. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. And so I understand that you were fired from Boeing. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Excellent. So most people are aware of some of the airlines that fly here in Australia. What do actually Boeing do here?
They have a number of different contracts, primarily defense. So in the area I was working on, it was doing maintenance for Air Force aircraft.
Okay. And you weren't in the military, were you a civilian?
Yeah, I was employed as a civilian with
Okay. And
a background in the Air Force several years ago.
excellent. And what did you do for Boeing?
I was an aircraft maintenance engineer in the avionics field.
Okay. For those of the people that aren't aviation related, avionics is maintenance for the electronics in the aircraft, basically the navigation systems, displays, radios, and all that sort of stuff. So, as many of us in the airlines experienced with the COVID and the mandates, what happened in your situation?
Yeah, it was along the similar timeline as a lot of the other airlines and major companies. Towards the end of 2021, they started talking about the potential to bring in a mandate and sent out a bit of a survey, seeing people's thoughts on it, and kind of despite the feedback they received, they ended up going ahead with mandating 2 doses of the vaccine.
Yeah.
And that was in November 2021 that came into effect.
Yeah, that's a very similar thing that happened in the airlines. What was the date of your compliance for Boeing?
The 19th of November 2021.
Interesting. So they've just changed it by a few days as
just before the Qantas. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Virgin was the 15th as well, and so was Alliance Airlines and a few of the others. So obviously you went through the termination process. It was basically a dog and pony show, just for show, that led ultimately to your termination. Was there any sort of defense that you had during the termination process that you put forward as an objection?
Yeah, in my case, I had quite a few legitimate objections. Initially, there was a application for a religious exemption due to it, being, let's just at least say, at odds with my religious beliefs.
Okay. And obviously that didn't work. What were the reasons?
They didn't give me a reason. They just denied that.
All right. So was there any other avenues that you tried to pursue?
Yeah. So funnily enough, later on, over the course of a couple of months of communication and back and forth and me going on leave, I ended up contracting COVID-19. So then I had a valid medical exemption to the vaccine. So I notified Boeing of that at the time. And yeah, funnily enough, at the same time, my manager had told me that he had gotten COVID and that a lot of other people in the workforce had gotten it.
Yeah.
And, I was like, oh, so the mandate's working well then.
Exactly.
But yeah, then in order for me to return to work, they were placing a number of different restrictions on me and requirements that I had to comply with. and one of those was wearing a mask at all times when at work.
Okay.
Which, yeah, I wasn't able to wear a mask safely at the time due to a couple of health conditions I had.
And did you provide any evidence for that?
Yeah, I did. I notified them. They were actually aware of it beforehand, but I notified them and provided them a letter from my doctor supporting that.
Yeah.
And they just wouldn't budge. So they just didn't accommodate it. And they also went above and beyond, even the Queensland government, the chief health directives, which I was in full compliance with at all times. They still just wouldn't even accept it.
Yeah, I
So
mean that's a
they never let me back to work.
Yeah, that's a recurring theme that we've heard from many people, and yeah, there's not going to be much sympathy for us at this point in time, obviously with the people getting injured. So, were there any other of your colleagues that were fired, terminated, or resigned, or other at Boeing?
Yeah, there were at least 10 people who got terminated in the end, and
Okay.
I know of others who resigned when the mandate came into effect, and
Okay.
most of the people that got terminated just walked away. I know of a few who took their case to the Fair Work Commission, and that got nowhere. I did even have another colleague who was part of my lawsuit initially.
Yeah. And did you go through the Fair Work process?
Yeah, I did, and as we've all experienced it, it was a pretty pointless exercise.
So were you actually pushing the Fair Work while you were still employed or post being terminated?
I had started the process while I was still employed, and
Right.
yeah, it was also a part of my employment contract. The dispute resolution procedure stated if you can't resolve it, go through Fair Work. So I was following that. They chose not to, and they terminated my employment anyway before it could even go through that process.
Yeah, yeah. This is the thing that a lot of people learned the hard way, myself included, is that Fair Work, there's nothing fair about it, and it doesn't work. And the process basically is for those people that are watching that think that the Fair Work there is to protect them. If you are still employed and you file a Fair Work application, the participation of your employer is voluntary. It only becomes mandatory once you've been terminated. So in actual fact, you go through the process of paying a lawyer to draft up your Fair Work application paperwork, which I did, cost me $400. And then you pay the Fair Work Commission the $75 filing. And basically, they send you a letter saying, we've contacted your employer and they have declined to participate because it's voluntary, case closed. It was literally like that. So it was, and they wouldn't tell you what the result of their letter to your employer was until you paid the $75. And literally, as soon as you've paid it, they tell you that it's not going any further. Now the difference is, once you are terminated, the company must show up, and basically, if they just dig their heels in, the Fair Work Commission has no authority whatsoever to make them even discuss with you the process. So that was a hell of an education, and just be warned, it's completely useless. Were you part of a union at all? Did you have any representation?
Yeah, we did have. We were part of an enterprise agreement, so there were people as part of that team communicating with management and HR.
Right. But no formally recognised union or anything like that.
No, it was just internal.
Yeah, it wouldn't have done you any good anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
but so So here you are, you find yourself unemployed. What date did your termination take effect?
I was in March 2022.
Okay. And you got onto a law firm. Which law firm did you find?
Initially, they were Australian law partners,
Yeah.
and then the lawyer I was with, Rob Greeley, he changed over to JKR lawyers,
Okay.
and now I'm with Tony Nicklick at AFL Solicitors.
And what happened with your representation under Rob Greeley?
Uh, it's hard to really say. He was, he seemed like he was a man of principle and was in my corner, willing to go to bat for me. And
Yeah.
then the trial date was looming, and I hadn't heard anything, so I was chasing it up and didn't hear anything from him. This was in the end a week before the trial was due to commence, and then I received an email from another partner at that law firm saying that Rob had taken ill and that he wouldn't be able to run the trial, basically.
And were you happy with the argument that was brought against your employer?
For my case,
Yeah.
yeah, I believe so. There were a number of different areas that I believed had quite a lot of merit, and so did Rob at the time. That's the opinion, I guess, that I was given.
Well, it's quite an unusual situation for you. Well, in my understanding, to have to get rid of your law firm. Why do you, apart from Rob getting sick, how come JKR lawyers didn't have another solicitor or barrister that could assist and represent you?
Yeah, there were the other partner who contacted me to notify me of Rob's illness. He just had a very different outlook on things, and his approach was, before he even looked into my case, he didn't know any of the details, any of the specifics, how strong of a case I had. His approach was basically risk management, and he just doomed and gloomed me basically into believing I didn't stand a chance, and my best bet was to cut and run. So that was his advice, which was quite different to all of the advice I had been given up until that point. So
do you feel that you were let down by the law firm?
Yeah, because the trial was meant to take place the next week, and all of a sudden I've got no lawyer, and the other lawyer there didn't want my case and didn't sound like someone who I wanted to try my case, and there was no counsel briefed or anything. So I had to, the amount of stress that put me through, I had to, at the last minute, try and get an adjournment of the case with the judge. And yeah, managed to get that right at the last minute. And then I had another cutoff time frame to get another lawyer on board, which was again a lengthy process that was, I was doing everything I could, but the rest was still out of my hands.
Yeah. So did you say that you actually had a trial date set, or was it a case management hearing or something like that?
Yeah, the trial date was set for the start of July.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you would have had to file, or your lawyer would have had to file paperwork quite early to be able to get a trial date. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that date in that calendar now is obviously, what have they done with that date?
Yeah, I had to get that adjournment because I didn't have any representation and
Yeah.
no counsel. So
Yeah.
yeah, I managed to. The judge agreed to an adjournment and to set a new trial date in December and get a new lawyer on board and go through the whole process again.
Wow. Okay. And how are you funding this?
Just self-funded from the dwindling life savings that I had, that myself and my family were hoping to use to buy a home before I lost my job.
Yeah. And your the colleague that you mentioned that you were going through with, they obviously got cold feet, or did they reach a settlement? What happened there?
You could say it was a settlement. It was more of a, without going into any specifics, more of an agreement just to bear costs and walk away.
Yeah. And of the people that resigned when all this push to get vaccinated came about, those that actually took a resignation rather than be terminated, have then any of them been offered their jobs back?
Not that I've heard of. Yeah, I'd have to ask a few questions to find that out. I doubt it though. The way that Boeing were just so bullheaded about this, there was no room for any, negotiation or working together to find a solution. It was just this or out.
Yeah, yeah. And so you're now with another law firm. Who are you with?
Yeah, Tony Nicklick at AFL Solicitors.
Okay. And how do
So
you
I'm
feel
still,
about go?
yeah, I mean, he seems like he's the guy that you want to have in your corner.
Okay.
I've seen him fighting these mandates from the get-go and having success in court and running with high-profile cases, and he's very familiar with the whole landscape, all of the new information that's coming out. So yeah, I feel like he's the one to take it all the way from here.
Excellent. Excellent. So to anybody watching, if I'm sure you're probably struggling as far as the funds go, being unemployed, like a lot of the airline staff, if anyone wants to support Advaita, you can get hold of Aussie Freedom Flies, and we can pass some details to assist him in his battle against these monsters. And yeah, listen, mate, thanks for coming on and telling us what's going on. And big shout out to Tony Nicklick at AFL Law. Yeah, we have heard that he's doing excellent work. And we're going to try and bring you some more stories on aviation matters post-pandemic. And for a lot of the staff that are going through this, it's a lot better to be fired than be cremated. And now the situation is going to change from those of us who were terminated unfairly to those that were, led up the garden path and vaccine injured. Don't forget, like, share, and subscribe to this new channel. You're going to be meeting Rebecca Doherty. She's a roving reporter, and Glenn Waters as well on Aussie Freedom Flies. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks for having me.